Last time we loaded the CAD system, did a few drawings, and this time we're going to make some components and make those components work together. So far we've been able to load the CAD software, and in preparation for drawing bicycles we need to be able to make components in the CAD and get them to work together. So we're going to go further the project of getting the Popsicle Stick prototype drawn in CAD and getting those components to work together and interact. And that'll allow us to have the tools that we need to go and build real bicycle drawings. I'm starting with a new drawing. I've inserted the popsicle. All right, before we get too much further, I want to interrupt this video for a public service announcement. As we get into the CAD, I realize it's going to take a while to get through these first design efforts, so before watching this video, you should consider 3 options. Option number 1 is, if you want to see my early efforts with CAD, then go ahead and watch this. I'll talk about all of the pain and misery and learning and all of the features that I used to make this first drawings. When it's done, please ask your questions and make your comments. Option number 2, if you just want to see how this prototype made out of popsicle sticks is put in CAD and maybe think a little bit about how it inspires the geometry of bicycles, you can set your playback to play this as fast as possible, enjoy the time lapse, or just skip to the end and you'll see what this looks like in CAD. Option number 3, if you're not into any of these design details, then just skip this whole video. You can join us later for something where we'll discuss the bicycle geometries in some detail and how we're going to build the prototype. You'll get to see how we build the bicycle and see our first bike rides. So, having given you the options, it's now up to you, and I'm going to go back to my first CAD design efforts. We are going to start by taking the popsicle and breaking its link to the original drawing so that I can then modify this popsicle in this drawing. So now I have a popsicle stick that's disconnected from the sketch that I did in another place. I can rotate this around using these screens. I can also touch the shift key and rotate it. I can also grab this cube and spin it around. Spreading my fingers or narrowing my fingers lets me zoom in and out, and there it is. Now I select that and I want to get it oriented as the spine of the popsicle prototype. And the properties of it, if I click on the properties, I should be able to see where it is. It's in world coordinates. I want to rotate this, so I select it, and notice that it has highlighted it. I can see that I have 1 selected. Sometimes I have 1, 2, or 3 selected. I can never really see directly what is selected, only that I have some selected, but usually that's simple enough that it doesn't matter. That's where I was confused. I expected that to be explicit in some way. And I can also see that this device is highlighted over here. So I'm highlighted in a bunch of different ways to tell me what I have. And I'm now rotated. Okay. So having done that, I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it as a new one. And now I can move it where I want, and I'm going to move it just a little bit using the arrow. And that tells me which axis I'm going on. So I'm going to make that a minus 30 millimeter move because I can type it. And say, okay, I'm going to paste again. I'm going to go to the top level drawing and I'm going to paste it as a new thing. And in this case, I want to go on Y, positive 30, and that's great. So now I have 3 pieces laid down, which I can cut up in the CAD in a few minutes to describe the wheel mounts, the spine, and time to go put some of the other pieces in. Series of pastes here of paste new. Don't get the paste new wrong because you don't get quite what you expect. Paste new, I want to rotate him on the Z-axis and on the y-axis. Wrong. So nice to have a quick undo. Great. I definitely want it further forward. I can push the shift key, rotate, and it's right there in the middle of the plane. I want it a little lower, so we're going to use this to go figure out how much lower. And picking a somewhat random number, let's see where that is. Look at it exactly from the front. I want to move it a little bit this way. I'm noting that my origin is right here. And I'm noting that the front in my design space isn't really the front of the thing. I want to move it 35 millimeters, so minus 35, just a nice round number. That's beautiful. And one more. Paste new. Again, we're going to rotate 90 on the Y. We're going to rotate 90 on the Z. We're going to move it 35 millimeters, and we're going to move it 10 millimeters. Holding the shift key, that's sort of what we have. It's sort of what I did in the real world, but now I got to cut up my popsicles. So I'm going to get this on the center, and I'm going to make some construction planes, which will start with an offset plane. One of the things you'll note down here is that Fusion 360 on the lower left of the screen is capturing a history, and if I capture the position, it's just going to remember that I did a bunch of movements. Having said I'm going to get an offset plane, I'm going to offset it from here. I'm going to offset it, let's say, 5 millimeters this way. I'll try to drag to 5 millimeters, close enough. And I'm going to spin around to look at the other side. I'm going to come on this side. I'm going to give myself an offset plane. And this will go 5 millimeters towards me. I think I can just drag that, do some adjustments. I'm going to do one more offset plane, which I think will come in handy later. I'm going to offset from, all right, it's not going to let me pick that edge very well from this angle. Let's flatten it. Construct another offset plane. Selecting my edge there, and I'm going to go -9. Now I have kind of all the different constructions I need to go ahead and start cutting this apart. Let's figure out which piece is which. Shall we name them? So to name it, highlight it, click it again, and we're going to call this the spine. We're going to call this left wheel. We're going to call this one the right wheel. And we're going to call this one the lower suspension. Let's go ahead and cut some of these bodies apart. When I say I want to cut it, I want to split the body into multiple pieces. And I think I do that under the Modify menu. Split body. So it creates new bodies by dividing the bodies using something. When I look underneath this piece that I'm looking at, there's a list of bodies, but I'm going to go ahead and split this body. So Modify, split the body, and I'm going to use this body, click. So now it wants to know what I'm going to use to split it, and I'm going to pick this face as the way to split it. And just say, okay. And now I can take this body. I don't want to delete it. Fusion 360 seems to do weird things when you delete things. It's better to remove them. Something in the history and how it builds the data model likes to have the dependencies all left in the data model. So you don't delete, you remove. And now I've removed that, and if I spin around a little bit, you'll see I've cut it off. But I kind of cut it off at the wrong place. So undo, undo, I have one body. I'm going to go ahead and split body again, just because I want to do this where I want it. I'm going to split this body, and now it's going to ask me the face I want to use, so I'll spin around. I actually wanted this one. And I'm happy with that. Okay. I'll pick this body. I'm going to remove it. Deleting it does funny things. And now I have that body split where I want it. We're going to do a bunch of splits. And having done that, you can see that we have the parts. Now, I also think I am going to create a new set of components. New component, and I'm going to call this component suspension upper right. Do that a few more times. All right, so I'm selecting body within what I initially called the suspension lower, and I carved a piece out. I actually want them to be separate components in the drawing. And I'm going to want to do that because I'm going to want to have a joint so I can actually see the prototype do what it's going to do. Nice. By selecting the whole device, now I grab this body, I can see which it is in there, and I can drag it to my new object, suspension lower left, and drop it in there, and now it's part of that. This suspension piece is empty. It doesn't have any bodies, and I actually can delete him. If I delete him, I think I'm going to get a warning message. And I'm going to cancel it because it's used somewhere else. So again, don't delete, remove. I'm going to have to look up what's the difference between delete and remove under the covers in Fusion 360. All right. So it all sort of kind of looks the same. Oh, we're missing one. Where's he? That little light bulb there, if they're not lit up, you're not seeing it. All right, let's go do some more modifications. We're going to split bodies. We're going to start by splitting these using, remember I put those construction planes in? So I knew I could cut things apart using them. But anyhow, construction plane, that's great. And I have a drawing of the parts. They're sitting in kind of sort of the right place, and now I got to figure out how to get them to move with each other. And here we go. So I'm going to start with taking the spine and grounding it. So that is, it is fixed to the world. So it says right here, ground. I now want to go and attach each of the pieces to it. So I'm going to start with the top and the wings, and I'm going to join them. You can take the location on one body and the location on another body, and it will move them together and then define the motion. But because I kind of constructed this where I wanted the pieces to be, I'm not going to do a join. I'm going to do an as-built join. And all that is there's a keyboard shortcut for it, which is just Shift-J. And it says, pick your components. And the tip that I had to go back and find out on this was, you pick your moving component first. So since my spine is the rigid component, I'm going to pick it second. So starting on the right, there's the first component, then here's the second component, and I want it to revolve, and I have to pick where it is. And I got to pick this carefully, because if I don't, it's not going to rotate the right way. So you can see I want the joint to be on this lower edge. And if I do that, it demonstrates nicely that I did, and having confirmed it, I say okay. And then I'm going to spin around here, and I'm going to do it again. Double checking the spine is a ground. Huh. I thought I made it ground earlier. Ooh, look. I can move one side. Let's put that back where it was. I can move the other side. Let's put that back where it was. I like that. I'm almost to where I want it to be. The next thing I want it to be is animated. So I think that if I take this joint and this joint and I make a motion link, I made my motion link, and look at that. What's in the software is so much sturdier than the Popsicle Sticks. All right, that's success. I'm happy. Was able to learn a tool well enough to get the Popsicle prototype in. It gives me some foundation for starting to draw real parts and real bicycles. I would very much like to hear comments on how do you use Fusion 360 better? What are the shortcuts? What are the tips, concepts, things that are helpful to go and do a better job using it? It's a pretty powerful tool. I like it. We're going to be able to do what we want to do here, and we're going to be able to share drawings. We're going to be able to design and build bikes. In the meantime, suggestions are welcome. Any other comments are welcome. Subscribe if you want to follow us, and we'll see you next time.